to Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
two certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only two best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go. Hi.
Hey.
I'm very pumped for this episode.
Yeah, this is going to be a treat. I'm
a real, not just a treat, because a treat would imply dessert. This is a full course meal.
A substance.
This is steak and potatoes and like asparagus or something. Like, this is like a well-rounded,
balanced
meal. It is well known that Kristen and I are fantastic coaches. That's actually not how I intended to end that sentence.
It is well known.
It is well known
how great of coaches we are.
And the part that I was going to say is well known, I just felt like I had to throw that in there too, right? Like, is we don't love the part where people are actually actively searching for jobs, because to us, that's the end result of all of the work we've already done with them. Like, if you've gotten to the point where you've taken confusion and overwhelm and fear and like not believing anything is possible, and you've transformed that into, I know who I am, I know what I'm looking for, I feel capable of like attracting in something really good in a way that I might not have even been a match to before.
And I trust myself to sift through options and make good choices for what's going to be aligned with me.
If you've already done all of that, then the next part is what Emily should be helping you with. Now, Kristen and I are pretty good at helping people with it, but there's no substitute for someone who knows her shit to the degree that Emily knows her stuff, which is why we had her on the podcast, because she was here 3.5 years ago and she had amazing insight then. And now she's back with totally new insight to kind of match where we're at in 2022.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For those of you who haven't listened to every single podcast episode, which is probably most of you, you may not know that Emily was on our podcast before, but it was pre-pandemic. So she gave
2018.
I mean, I'm telling you, she dropped wisdom bombs, things that Rachel and I were like, whoa, we should probably have known some of these things, but she's a real talent in how to get you the job. We're really good at helping. What do you want to do in the first place?
Which she doesn't necessarily like. I don't think that's her thing.
It's not her favorite part.
Right. If you come to her and you don't yet know what you want, she's going to be like, turn around and like go work with a Rachel or a Kristen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they work. Our skill sets work very well in harmony.
Yes.
But she dropped some serious wisdom bombs before about how to get a job, and I have sent countless people to her episode from 3.5 years ago. Mm-hmm. But as we're all quite aware, the job market has changed a bit. Our work lives have changed in ways that are not going back to pre-pandemic times. Working is different. Getting a job is different. And so we thought it was time to bring Emily back to say, all right, what's your latest and greatest? Because we're in a whole new world here.
This is how I start out the episode with her. I know you weren't there, but that's how I was like, okay, tell me, because things have changed.
Yep.
So this will change how you look for jobs for the rest of your life. And it will change your ability to get a high quality job. I think that I do not exaggerate when I say that you will be able, I think after listening to this, to get jobs that you previously were ignored. Like I do not kid you. So, okay. With all of that said, let's read Emily's bio so that they know who the heck they're listening to.
Okay. Emily Liou is a career happiness coach and job search expert at cultivate.com, who helps professionals make wildly successful career transitions even when they don't have all the skills, experience, education, or go-to network. That is critical. That is one of the biggest beliefs we have to overcome with clients is, I don't have the right experience, or I don't.
Yeah.
Emily's going to hook you up. As a former recruiter and HR professional for Fortune 500 companies and Silicon Valley startups, she knows exactly what allows professionals to stand out, get visible, and get hired. Emily strongly believes life is too short to not wake up happy on Mondays and has been featured as LinkedIn's top 10 voices to follow in career and job searching for 2022. That is very cool. As the creator of her ultimate job search course, Happily Hired Formula, Emily not only provides strategies to make any career transition possible, but also coaches them through building a positive self-image to go after their biggest dreams.
Mm-hmm.
She has a free masterclass.
Yes.
I'm sure she's going to talk about that more.
Yes. Mm-hmm. She will talk about that at the end. And again, we'll link free. And I think that a lot of you are going to want to go take her free training because again, this is basically a free training. And she wasn't even coming in like, here's my bullet points. Here's my presentation. We were just talking. So I imagine when she's actually determined to give you a certain amount of information in a certain order, it's going to be even better than this conversation. So enjoy and go forth and find jobs because you're going to be able to now. Okay. Be back at the end. Hi, Emily.
Hey, Rachel. How's it going?
What a reunion of over 3 years. It's like close to 3.5 years since you were originally on the podcast. If you can believe that, maybe you can, because a lot's happened for you in that time.
Well, it doesn't feel like 3 years ago, but with COVID and everything happening, I've lost track of time, to be honest. It's a blur.
Well, you had a baby and you moved states, I just found out. So You've been pretty active in the last 3.5 years.
Thank you. Yes, I realized in case any working parents are out there, if you can raise a baby, you can do anything in life.
I mean, I do not have a baby, but I amen to all the people I've seen trying to do that. And like, they still look sane and relatively happy. I'm like, you must be doing just
selected
fine.
Highlights. Those are selected highlights. Like oftentimes they're stood up and you're just not camera ready 99% of the time. But yeah.
So, okay. The world has changed. So if you were to ask you and I 3.5 years ago what 2022 would be like, I don't think you and I would have predicted the difference. Obviously, like who could have predicted the difference? So it's changed a lot more than we could have assumed or imagined in the last 3.5 years. And that everything has changed. Personally, one of my favorite sort of side effects of the pandemic, like I wish we could take the pandemic back. We can't. So one of the side effects of it is working remotely is now like just a thing. And having more flexibility and a little bit more autonomy over your schedule seems to be way more commonplace now. And there's no going back. That's such a big thing that had to change by necessity. And I love that it was such a huge turn that like we can't pretend that didn't happen. That I'm happy about. But more than just that changed. It wasn't just like the way we work, but the way we find jobs and job searching. And I would imagine there are even more possibilities now because so many people have quit their jobs in the last 6 months. So anyway, I was like, I need to bring Emily back to talk about everything that has changed and how we're supposed to confront and like move forward with finding new jobs and, I don't know, navigating transitioning in your career or something in 2022.
You're absolutely correct. Like, I don't think any of us could have imagined what current day, modern day workplaces look like. But to your point, I think it's really forced so many organizations to reevaluate. How do we treat our employees? What are we giving our talent? What is our talent wanting and needing? And you're right, as much as COVID has brought a lot of pain and disruption in the world, in the career aspect, it's been quite wonderful in the sense that it's been a huge reset and companies are realizing, wow, Yeah, actually, we were productive during this time when nobody was in the office. And wow, like we can actually generate better talent and people like from all over the globe that are working remotely. And I think this is the first time ever that employees are also starting to make demands because, as you mentioned, we're in that great reshuffle where so many people have decided to voluntarily resign, consciously quit so that they can start asking themselves these big, important questions. Am I still happy where I am? Or did I just wake up one day and realize I fell into this? And if I'm not happy, what will make me happy? Because this is the time to be a part of that shuffle and find that meaning, that purpose, that fulfillment, and be able to actually have a voice at the table to ask for it, because employers are having such a hard time filling these positions as people start to quit and really inundate their teams with more work, which is causing them to feel burnout. And it's like this vicious cycle that is happening right now.
Okay, you just said a lot, and it's all but it's all completely true. I hadn't thought of it quite that way, but you're right that I think the balance of power is shifting and it's becoming at least more equal, if not, in the employee's favor all of the time. But I think one of the things that makes work so toxic, I mean, not across the board, but when work gets toxic, one of the main reasons it is because the employer has so much of the leverage and the power, and they take advantage of it. And they know that, you're not going to quit because you need us to survive. And Kristen and I had a whole separate episode, which I can link to, about how to sort of tell if you've had workplace trauma. Because I think a lot of what we call abuse in any other relationship doesn't get named that in workplace situations. Because we need, because we kind of have to deny what's happening in order to just keep getting that paycheck and keep surviving. And so I think you're right that the pandemic made people really question what was worth it. And now they're not going to go back to do something that's going to be awful or make them feel like crap. And they're going to ask better questions, and they have higher standards. And so you're right. People are now having a harder time filling positions. And that means they have to up their ante if they want to, if they want to attract the right people. They have to give people more options and more flexibility and autonomy and better pay and all of the things that have historically made work not fun are starting to change, which is really great news for pretty much everybody listening to this.
Yeah. And I love what you just shared there about feeling like you don't really have a say in walking away from workplace trauma, quote unquote, or a toxic workplace. I know personally, I've been there, and so many of my clients feel that way too, where we almost feel like we're one employee, but there's like so many other candidates out there, right? Like there's so many people with the similar skill sets or we have colleagues from different places. And so we think that there's like, for instance, like I know all the career coaches out there, not all of them, but a lot. And I feel like, oh, it's so saturated, right? And so sometimes we can get into that scarcity mindset, but I want your listeners to know that there's actually not enough of you and that you have something so special and so purposeful, and your unique talent, your unique personality, all of that makes you such a great talent and employee and candidate. And employers are not seeing that there's like a gazillion of you. So that's where like candidates actually do have a lot of power in deciding, I have the potential and the capacity to go after something I want. But I think a lot, and we can get into this more, but I think a lot of candidates have those mindset blocks and those limiting beliefs where we don't see that abundance, especially in the moment when we're looking at a job description and there's like 200 other applicants. And you're like, well, what makes me so special? Right? But that's what we have to tap into.
Okay, I would love to explore this cognitive dissonance, because I think you're right. Most people I've talked to would assume the odds are stacked against me. There are so many people applying for every job. Like there's got to be a lot of people who are almost carbon copies of me. Why would they hire me? And you're over there saying, I don't think that is the employer's experience. So why not? And how do you know? Like, I mean, I'm just putting myself in the shoes of someone who's like desperately looking for a job. And I'm like, how do you know that, Emily? Like, where does that come from?
I wish you could see inside of this applicant tracking system, or the portal basically, where people are uploading their resumes and cover letters. Just recently, I was hiring for a content copywriter, and in my job description, I specifically said, please send me one paragraph stating why you're interested in helping my company and what my mission is. Literally within the first 24 hours, I got, 50 applications. One person followed the directions. So, it goes back to a lot of candidates spray and pray. They don't have clarity on fire right now. They're just like, well, that looks interesting. Or maybe it doesn't even look interesting. They're just like, I just need to play the numbers game and spray and pray. And so it's becoming more quantity over quality. But when a candidate can step back and really clarify what is it that they want, what do they value? How do I align myself to that? How do I brand myself and package myself so that it's so on point and irresistible to an employer? It doesn't matter how many applications are in that pile, they will stand out time and time again. And it doesn't become that competitive anymore.
Spray and pray is my new favorite saying. And I totally it's right. It's like the fire hose. It's just like, I'm just going to cover all this ground, but and then hope it goes well, as opposed to being really laser focused on a few things that actually seem aligned with you. And it's amazing how just following the damn instructions can make you a standout candidate. Oh my God. I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised by that, but that's such good news for all of the smart people listening to this who can read and follow instructions.
Yeah. And an analogy I thought of the other day was, especially because my iPhone, I don't know what's happening, but it continuously blows up with spam calls. And
yes,
it's almost like a spam caller. It's like when you're spraying and praying, you're just blindly trying to see is anybody going to pick up on the other end? And I don't know about you guys, but all of my spam calls get immediately blocked, or I just hit reject. Right. And so it's the same thing for candidates. When they're directionless, they don't know what exactly they want or what sets themselves apart. They're basically spamming, and spamming never works in this day and age.
No, because people are so good at spotting it now. And now my phone is now just sending spam calls directly to voicemail without even ringing. It's just it assumes it's spam and it just gets blocked, and I don't even have to see it. So,
Seriously,
right?
Smart.
Right. So, okay. So there was, oh no. Okay. I got to go find it. So there was this post that you did a few weeks ago, which is what made me say, I have to reach out to Emily again, on Instagram. And you put up this little kind of chart that was the old way of job searching and the new way of job searching. And I'm going to read it to people because I was like, oh my God, so many people are still doing the old way. And I'm not hip apparently enough to the new way. Your new way made total sense, but I'm like, we need to talk more about the new way. So the old way, just a few bullet points, was update resume, write cover letter, apply, wait, and repeat. The new way was identify dream organization, update LinkedIn, send solution message to recruiter and hiring manager, land in immediate interview, negotiate offer. Okay. Can you walk us through why the old way is not going to work anymore? And then we can talk about the new way.
Yeah. And I can actually speak from personal experience and also share some of my clients' transformations. But, I think a lot of us graduated from college, and even to this day, career counselors are still teaching the very traditional way of putting together a resume, update your cover letter, which, by the way, oftentimes is so cookie cutter and just doesn't really stand out or make any noise. And so we apply online to whatever job postings we see. We think maybe this sounds like a good fit. Let me just try. By the way, I have a lot of candidates who, if they don't check all the boxes, they decide not to go for it. And my rule of thumb is aim for the 70% because you want room to grow. You don't want to take a lateral step or a step back in your career. So it's not about being that perfect candidate that can hit the ground running on day one. It's about the overall potential and whether or not they see an alignment there. But that goes back to making sure that you have your personal brand. So anyways, a lot of people, including myself back in the day, would apply online and then we would just wait, right? We would wait, see if we get a call back or an interview invitation. And what generally happens is there's like a whole hidden job market / side door, which we'll talk about in the new way. But what happens is other candidates are starting to progress forth in the process. They're getting interviews, then they move into the offer stage. And then when they accept the offer, the recruiter has to go in and select all the people who have applied to this job and reject them. And then that's when they get that canned response that says, thanks, but no thanks. We found a better candidate. Hope you apply again in the future. And what happens to us as job seekers is we start to take it personally. We start to think, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough. I'm not experienced enough. Dang it. I knew if only I had that certification, or maybe I should go get my master's degree again. We start to make up all of these stories that there's something wrong with us, especially as the rejection letters pile. But actually, there's nothing wrong with you. And so for me, even when I was a recruiter, I was job searching the traditional or old way. In 6 months, I literally landed one interview and I gave up. I was like, maybe I should just be happy where I am, toughen it out. Maybe I need to like get an attitude adjustment and change my perspective. And let me just stay here. But of course, when you're feeling like you're stuck in a rut or burned out or unhappy and unfulfilled, you're like constantly just starting to question whether or not this is it. And it just spirals into something bigger. But the good news is, this is something I tested out when I was recruiting. I actually saw very few candidates do this, but when they did, they got immediate interviews. And that is, they again got really targeted. What do I want? What are those dream roles or dream organizations? How do I package myself in a way that my LinkedIn is almost like a billboard so that anybody who like searches for these keywords or stumbles across my profile or checks my profile out, they know what I'm about. They know who I am, what I can do, how I can help. And by the way, it's not about where you were or who you've always been. It's about where you're wanting to go, because we all control our narratives, and our personal brand is about what do we want others to interpret us as, and is that being seen? So if we're not active on LinkedIn, which is like the number one tool for recruiters to find candidates, it's a missed opportunity because they don't know what you're about or who you are and how you can help. When, again, going back to the beginning of our conversation, employers are having a talent gap right now. They need people like you, but they also need to know and understand why you're a fit for that organization and that role. So anyways, I used to recruit for Fortune 500 companies, and I would post a job online. I'd get a lot of spammed resumes coming through that I have to sift through. And then a hiring manager would come up to me and be like, hey, Emily, I don't know who this person is, but they just sent me a message on LinkedIn. I like the way they communicated. They sound like a good fit. Their profile seems like a good match. How do we bring them in? Can I schedule an interview with them? In other words, they get so excited about this proactive candidate, they would actually bypass the whole system. They'd force me to put them on the interview books. And to me, I actually feel like they already made such a favorable first impression that there's so many biases that happen in recruiting, but they're already rooting for them. And so then, they go through the interview process and then they get an offer letter. And then again, all those people who played by the rules and applied and waited, they just get that rejection email. And again, it has nothing to do whether or not they were qualified enough. It was just that somebody got visible. And I always tell my job seekers, you can't get a job if people don't know that you exist. And so essentially that's what I did when I was moving from California to Arizona the first time around. I've moved back and forth a lot, but I moved back and didn't know anybody, but found my dream list of organizations and did exactly that. Branded myself on LinkedIn, sent a message to recruiters and hiring managers, which, by the way, like LinkedIn is such a powerful tool. Anybody you want to connect with, especially in this remote day and age when people aren't in the office, you can still find them and connect with them and send them a message, which I like to call a solution message, where you're positioning yourself as a solution to their problems and their pain points. And they're going to get curious. They're going to be like, who is this? Literally within a week, I ended up getting a job as a Fortune 500 recruiter, even though I didn't have Fortune 500 experience before. Didn't have a recruiting manager title before, but moved into recruiting manager. Got a job inside of the R&D department where I had zero STEM background. I was like, what is an engineer? But I still got it. And, it's like all of those excuses or reasons that we tell ourselves we can't get a job, they were completely debunked because I realized I just needed to approach my job search in a more modern way.
Okay, I have so many questions, and I'm sure other people do too. All good things. So first, I want to say this is something that, even though I'm not a recruiter, and that this aspect of coaching is where I feel like my clients and I do the most sort of guesswork together. We're just kind of feeling it out. Like, I'm not the expert on this in the way that you are, but it has always made sense to me for some, especially for some people who, after going through coaching, we get very clear on what's been getting in their way and what they really value and who they really are. And based on those core desires that they have, here's a list of my absolute non-negotiables for not just not so much what I want to do, but how I want to feel. And what I want to get out of working, right? I want to have autonomy. I want to have freedom. I want to have creativity. I want to have stimulation. I want to be like innovative, right? And oftentimes it's not just one specific job that's going to match that. There's a lot of different possibilities that could be a match to who you are and what you value, at least right now, because you're going to evolve. And so who you are now is going to change, and that's fine. But it always made sense to me to maybe identify organizations that are a good fit for what you value and what you bring to the table, and see, are there roles within those organizations that, kind of pop for you when you're exploring them, instead of kind of going about it the reverse way, which is, let's try to find the what first, maybe find the where and the who the with who first, and then kind of reverse engineer it from there. So all of that said, this is probably a big question, and you don't necessarily have to go into a bunch of detail about it, but I am curious what you would say about how do people go about identifying those types of organizations, maybe once they are clear, because you have to be clear about what I just said, right? Like who you are and what you really value, or else I'm not sure it would actually work. But what do you think?
Yeah, I really love that. And I completely agree with you that we are human beings versus human doings. And with over 80,000 titles out there, it is hard to narrow and pinpoint just one title. I feel like a lot of people are looking for that elusive, like, what should my career be about for the rest of my life? And I like to look at our careers as chapters. Like, what do I want in this chapter? Like, what is lighting me up? What is most important to me? And to your point, Rachel, like, how do I want to feel? Because the more you can step into the feeling aspect, then you can kind of think about, okay, what are the roles that are realistically going to allow me to do that? But I would say it's kind of 50-50. I don't know if it's 50-50. That's just a random number I picked out. But there's a large part of people who know exactly what they want to do and what skill sets they want to utilize. By all means, that's a great place to start. Is like, okay, what are the roles that I want to do? And then the second part of career fulfillment is feeling like you're having meaning and purpose and impact. So it's like, well, with this special superpower skill, who do I want to actually impact, right? Because I hear this a lot from my candidates, especially when they're saying things like, I don't really feel like the work that I'm doing has any tangible results. Like, I could do these spreadsheets, but I don't really know like what the end result is, or like I'm not connected to it. Like, selling lawn mowing services doesn't really light me up, right? And so then I think if you can think about who do I want to serve, who would I really love to impact, what is that population that I would love to make a ripple effect on, what are the like issues and problems in this world that irk me the most that I could be a part of a solution for. That's really exciting to then start targeting those industries. And then from the industry level, you can start to do research on the companies that are in your local area. Or tip for a lot of your listeners out there, there's so many search functionalities to search for remote jobs. There's a whole job board called remote.io, which lists 100% remote organizations. So you don't have to be tied down to a single location if you don't want to be. And then also LinkedIn, by the way, they have on their advanced search filter under jobs for like location, they have a whole section that says remote only jobs. And that's another great way to start finding organizations that you care about.
Okay. I love it. I had a client do this recently with, she identified that one of her big values is I really love like being surrounded by women. And I think I want to work for like a woman sort of led company or, you know, or a company that solely focuses on women's issues or whatever. And so that was so much easier for her to narrow her focus to, okay, well, what kind of companies are either are kind of both and, right? Woman focused and woman led.
Yeah.
And my could be remote, could be anywhere, right? Doesn't matter for her.
Yeah, she's definitely going to feel more connected. And it's also going to help her when she's going through her personal branding so that she can really focus and highlight that so that it resonates and connects to her interviewer. And then because that's something that's truly important to her and she's passionate about it, that's going to shine through in her interview too. Because you can tell when people are just like looking up what the company does last minute and they don't really have a true connection. But a lot of organizations, they want to know if we're going to hire you, we're going to spend our time, our money, our resources to train you. Is this something that you really want? Because again, if you don't, and it's just a stop on your journey, they're going to be able to pick up on that. And again, I believe that even if you don't have all the qualifications, you're not traditionally the best candidate or the candidate that makes the most sense, but they can sense that drive and that passion and that hunger and that true commitment. That's going to allow you to have the leg up in the process as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you've mentioned this so many times that I would be negligent to not ask more directly about personal branding. My God. I mean, this takes me back to like when I was in college, 13 years ago and in my PR classes. And I genuinely remember being in a class and my professor talking about Twitter and me turning to my friend and going, "What, do you know what Twitter is?" And he was like, "No." So I don't know. That's like dating me. Right. But I think back to that and like, that was like all the rage then, like, what's your brand? What's your, and apparently it hasn't changed, but maybe the context of what personal brand means in 2022 is different than what I would have thought it was in 2008 or something like that when I didn't know what Twitter was. So when you say personal brand in this context, what do you mean exactly?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. To me, personal brand is your billboard, essentially. Like you're really walking the walk versus talking the talk. So let me give you an example. I used to hire for social media positions. And you and I talked about this, like we're not in love with social media, but if you are going for a social media manager position and you don't have social media to showcase like your knowledge, your credibility, your expertise, your work samples, it's going to be really hard for an employer to select you over somebody who is showing that, hey, here's some of my writing samples or captions. Here's how I understood like the importance of having a standout profile photo. Here's how I have put together a content strategy for myself as I showcase my work and portfolio, right? And so not all not all jobs are so visual. Like, for instance, a finance person or accounting person, they probably don't need a platform like Instagram. But this is where I believe LinkedIn is universal across the board, because LinkedIn is essentially a social media network, but it's also just where the professionals congregate, right? And so when you don't have an updated LinkedIn profile, typically you're telling the world, I don't really care to be found or seen, or like, I'm not really open to new opportunities. And that may be the case. It also may not be the case. And if it's not because you're actively job searching, this is where I would want you to really spend some time and, at the very minimum, have a LinkedIn profile that again showcases, like Jeff Bezos says it best, what your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So like, if a recruiter, a hiring manager were to stumble across your profile, what do you want them to say about you? And one of the exercises I love to have my clients go through are like, what are the top 3 adjectives you want them to walk away with? So again, if you want to be known as somebody who's bubbly, like, do you have a bubbly presence or like personality or positivity on your feed or your profile? And then also, in addition to the adjectives, what are the top 3 strengths and areas that you want to be known for, right? Like, so what do you want to be an expert in? What do you want to be known for? Even if you're not an expert now, or like you're not at the top of your game, that's okay. Like, what do you want to build towards? These are the things, like aspects that should be shining through on your profile.
This is so valuable. And I also think this is highlighting the importance of getting clear before you reach this step. Because I'm imagining people who maybe are just now starting to think about, well, what do I want to do? And maybe why am I unhappy in the career I've had thus far? And then trying to do that. And hey, if they can do it, great. But having coached for a decade now, I know a lot of people would probably end up writing or sort of putting together a brand that's what they think other people want to see, not actually what they want genuinely at their core to be known for. People pleasing is going to come out in that context if you're not careful, right? Like, well, I want people to think that I'm impressive. And I'm like, do you really want that? Or do you want that because you're insecure, right? Like, just kind of putting in a word for like, you got to kind of do this whole process before you can get to that point and really authentically you can't authentically sell yourself if you don't authentically know who you are. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. Long-winded.
That's absolutely right. And I feel that when it comes to your personal brand, it's also about moving away from the scarcity mindset and into the abundance mindset again, because sometimes, actually, a lot of times, my clients are worried that it's so narrow that they're going to close out all the doors. Like, there's going to be one opportunity that matches. But actually, the opposite is true. When you can get clear on your message, you can showcase to an employer, hey, I've done the clarity work. Like, I know what I want and what I'm about and the value that I can offer you. Even if they don't have the exact match, they're still going to be so drawn to you and compelled by you. And then they're going to be like, well, have you ever considered XYZ? And then you can decide whether or not that excites you. Again, because I feel like you probably could talk a lot more about this, Rachel, but I feel like a lot of times we have this vision in our minds that we hold so tight where we end up closing off everything else. Whereas I think a vision is important as like a north compass, but it's almost like, what else do you know? Or what else do you not know until you actually get there? And then we can take that information in. That action is going to spark more clarity, and then we get to make a more better informed decision.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. I think that oftentimes I say this at the beginning of many of my coaching relationships is it's okay for you to have a reason that you think you're here. Like, I think I want a new job. And I'm like, great, you probably do. Leave room for what you might actually want. Because I find that who you are at the beginning wants certain things, and who you actually are, which gets revealed more and more and more over time, the deeper you kind of go into coaching, you find out what that person wants. And that person has ideas and ambitions and dreams that might far exceed what you even conceived as possible at the beginning because you were too held back by fears or lack mentality or whatever. And you literally just couldn't see what was possible. And even the most authentic, sort of like self-actualized, unblocked version of you is still not omnipotent and not all knowing and is not going to have, is not going to know how much more could be possible. So you also have to leave room for like the universe to come in and be like, well, how about this? And to just kind of like knock your socks off, basically.
I love that. I just saw an onion in my head as you were talking. That's really what it is. It's like all these layers that we peel back and we're still, I love what you just said there, like the most self-actualized version of you still on a journey to like find that next thing.
Mm-hmm. Right. So exactly, being super narrow-minded about, no, this is what I want. And this is the only thing that can make me happy. I'm like, back up. I am not saying that you should sacrifice the idea of being like super, super fulfilled. I'm just saying you might not know what could actually do it for you. And there could be so many more or different or interesting things that could get you there than you are currently able to conceive of. So leave room for the unknown. Okay. So I'm much clearer on what a personal brand is in this context now. So I would love, because you said, getting on LinkedIn and updating that and making your personal brand very clear. And then being the solution, offering yourself up basically as the solution to the dream organization's problem. Do you have any, I'm sure you do have some examples of what that looks like and like how that actually like comes to pass? Like, is it like you're LinkedIn messaging someone and you're like, boy, do I have what I think you want? Like, how does that actually work?
Yeah. So one thing that I want to emphasize for every job seeker out there is that you are getting paid to solve a problem. And I think a lot of times we feel that we're just here to be a cog in the wheel and to use our skill sets or our knowledge to apply to an organization. So a lot of times we focus on, well, I'm a project manager with 10 years of experience and I know how to delegate and like budget on time. And, I'm not a project manager, so I'm kind of making this up, right. But they're so fixated on the responsibilities and the tasks that they're performing instead of speaking to, well, why does a company actually need a project manager? What happens when the project manager isn't there? Because again, every single role is created and budgeted because there's a problem if something's not filled, right? And typically that problem goes towards the company's not making enough money, the company isn't meeting their deliverables, the company doesn't have enough clients to like refer that are happy, they're not saving enough money, like they're bleeding money because they don't have operations in place. So it's really key. And this could also help with clarity is like, what problem do you want to solve? And then the title and all of that get figured out. But oftentimes when I have my clients go through the personal brand, it's like, okay, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What kind of company do you want to work for? How do we package you to showcase that you're on your journey there? Or this is all of the things that you've done in the past that speak to that. Like every single line has its purpose. So that again, if they're a complete stranger, which most likely they will be, they get it. They're like, oh, okay, I understand this person's story, like who they are, where they're headed. So then from there, it's really about finding the ultimate decision makers. It's about looking at the hiring manager of the organization. You can pretty much make an educated guess. So like if you're a finance manager, you're going to reach out to the finance director, right? Who's your boss going to be in this organization? Yeah. And then how do you just introduce yourself so that they know you're, again, visible, that you exist? Because let me tell you, if they have an employment gap right now, they have a vacancy right now in their department, they're going to be so excited to receive your message because they're going to be like, yes, like, actually, we do have this problem. And oh, okay, like I want to have an interview or a discussion to see how you can fill this. So a solution message is really not so much just like saying, hey, I'm interested in your org. Here's my background. I have 10 years of experience in doing this. Hope I can connect with you. here's my resume in case you're interested. It's really meeting the employer at where they're at. So again, sharing with them and expressing and customizing this message to personalize it so that they can tell that you've done research on this organization, why you're interested in them out of all of the other organizations you could potentially reach out to. And then two, really identifying like, well, what is the problem I'm solving? So again, instead of like going back to a project manager, talking about, I have 10 years of project management experience, which another project manager is going to say as well. It's really about, I understand that right now you guys have this big launch that you're releasing in the upcoming months. I imagine that with your growth, you're having trouble with getting all of the different departments up to speed so that, again, the ultimate problem is this project can be completed on time and under budget. So you're really meeting them where they're at. And then you're introducing yourself as, in case you ever are interested in getting support, I recently did this for this organization and these were the results. I'd love to chat. And immediately you've like stood out, you've built your credibility. I have clients who send these messages. We have like templates that we've tested over and over with subject lines, but they literally send this message out. And even though they got the auto rejection email already from an application they sent months ago, they will literally get a message email response back saying, hey, let's jump on a phone call. And like, I've had clients who've gotten rejected like 5 times from an organization. Then they send this message and now they're working at that organization. And again, it's all about the communication, like the messaging and the visibility, instead of, again, assuming like somebody on the back end is reading your 1-page resume or 2-page resume and trying to like understand what you can do.
I love this, Emily. Like, as someone who is like a storyteller at heart and who is a firm believer that you can spin anything if you have the right words for it, right? I feel like you should not leave the writing of a narrative about you to anybody else. So when you send in a resume, that's what you're doing, right? When you're just applying for a job online and you're just kind of like auto applying. No wonder most of those are just going into a black hole, because if anyone sees that, they have to do all of the work of connecting the dots of who is this person? How could they possibly fit here? Like, they have to tell the story themselves, and they're not capable of doing that because they're a stranger. They don't know you. And
most people don't know their own story.
Well, that's
unless
true.
They're really doing it. Yeah.
Again, back to why it's so important to get to the point where you can actually tell your own story in an attractive way that feels good to you, and that's going to appeal to somebody else. But that's like right there, you just sort of really, really, really made an important point about why it's so important to tell, to be able to take control of your narrative and share it with other people. And don't let them come to conclusions. You come to conclusions and then share it with them. And as I was hearing you, I was thinking, if I was on the receiving end of one of those messages, it wouldn't even matter to me if that person had just like completely misread the entire situation. Like, let's say they're like, I don't even have that problem. I don't even need a solution to this problem that I don't have. But I would be so impressed by like the initiative that they took, or like the thinking that had gone into that I'd be like, well, but that person might actually be really good at this other thing that we do have a problem with. So I don't even think that I would be turned off if they completely they misread or misunderstood the whole thing.
Absolutely. Again, it's about being visible. And like I said, there's so many other opportunities and roles and problems that a company has, but then they can see from your background whether or not you have like the skills. And this again is why you want to highlight what you want to do and like the skills that you actually want to leverage. But I want to hit on what you just shared about the story that you must tell before somebody else tries to botch it or like tries to string it together. And this is something that I specialize in because a lot of the clients that I work with are actually transitioning careers. So they're in either an industry, a role, an organization, a location that no longer suits them. But then they're like, well, Emily, how do I stand out, or how do I get the job when I don't have all the experience? And so back to what Rachel was sharing about people can't connect the dots. Like if you're submitting a resume for a lateral position, like you're a project manager going to another project manager role, and your last title was project manager, by all means, go ahead, apply. Like they're going to be able to like piece that together. But if you're making a transition, you want to switch industries, you want to switch roles and departments, this is really where that career story and having that is so key to being able to get the experience without all the experience. Like that's the missing ingredient so many people have.
This was going to be my next question for you, and you already brought it up, which was like, what do you say to people who pigeonhole themselves because they're like, well, it's too late. I've been doing this. I've been a software engineer for 20 years. There's no way that anyone else is going to hire me or take me seriously now. Like, how do you combat those types of limiting beliefs that people have?
Oh, I'm so good at debunking those limiting beliefs within 30 seconds. All you need to do, go to LinkedIn.com, type in your ideal organization or your ideal title, and look at people's public resumes. You're going to, so I'm a software engineer. I can't do anything else because I've been in this and pigeonholed for the past 20 years. Great. Type in the title of what you're going for and just see, did anybody hold another title before this? And if yes, they've made a transition, so why can't I? You can also do like an advanced search filter and type in your old title, software engineer. Like it'll say like past title, you can put software engineer. And then you can see all the people who were previously software engineers and then just click on their profiles. Within like 10 clicks, I'm sure and positive, you're going to find somebody who has a non-software engineer title currently.
That is brilliant. I didn't even know LinkedIn could do that, but there you go. That's why we have Emily on the podcast, because we don't know these things.
But all we need is just one example of somebody who's proven whatever we're thinking in our minds, because we're our biggest blocks, right? Like the minute we plant that seed of a belief, we just don't have any more motivation because we don't think it's possible. But again, when you open up the possibilities, it's limitless. And then you have the excitement, the energy to actually start moving forward in the process, and the action is what's going to get the result. So highly recommend
that. Yeah. I love that. It's so smart. And I think the same goes of any limiting belief that we have. I mean, I sometimes hear the same thing about age, right? Like, oh, it's too, like, I don't know, no one's going to take me seriously because I'm too young for that. And then often I've heard the opposite, which is, well, I'm in my 50s now and I'm too close to retirement and I can't do anything new. I guess LinkedIn probably doesn't have like what are 55-year-old people doing, search feature, but
you could actually search by graduating year. So that's another thing I have. A lot of my too young and my too old clients do. And look, guys, anything is possible at any age. But yeah, if you're really concerned, type in your graduating year for your undergrad. See what those people are up to. And you can also see like people who recently made a move within the past year. Again, if they're your age, they're making these career moves. Why can't you make the same career moves?
Yes. I mean, I think that everything you've said should emphasize the point that people want to hire people who they are excited about and who have good stories and can help solve their problems. I think secondary to that, if it's relevant at all, is like, where are you from and how old you are, right? Like if you can wow someone with your ability to solve their problem, what do they care what you did before this or how old you are?
Absolutely. As long as you can position yourself as somebody who's going to make their lives easier, not more difficult, they're going to be so excited to hire you because, like I said, the worst thing, and I'm sure we can speak as entrepreneurs too, is having that gap in place, because it's like everything else gets either half-assed or it's just not getting done, and you can't meet your maximum potential or output when you don't have the right people in place.
You just said the word gap, and I know you spoke to this in, 2018, but it's 2022 and people still are worried about it, Emily. The gap on the resume. I know you don't care about the gap on the resume. I know you're like, it doesn't matter, but can you please comfort people who think that matters in 2022?
Yeah, actually, just this past week, I had a stay-at-home mom. She is stay-at-home mom for the past 11 years, re-entering the workforce. And again, very insecure or like filled with self-doubt because she hasn't had traditional work experience in the past 11 years. She just landed her dream job and she's making double her previous salary 11 years ago. And it's a full-time job, project manager title. Didn't have to go back to school to become a project manager. She was able to do all those things we just talked about, personal brand, crafting her career story, sending out solution messages to get visible, and brushing up on her interviewing skills because she hadn't interviewed in a long time. But again, it's just a skill that you can practice and get better at and absolutely conquer. And she is in that job. But, aside from her, we're in this place right now where so many people, like, look, 4 million people quit alone in November.
Saw that.
4.8 million quit in December. So what, like all these people now are unemployable forever? No, they do not have a scarlet letter on their backs. Like, it's just an employer wants to know, what is your rationale? Do you have a good reason to share when they ask that question? So why did you leave? And I think this is really where, going back to Rachel's, anything can be spun. Anything can be shared into a positive that works to your advantage. So if you left because you were in a toxic work environment and you were burned out, no, you don't want to necessarily go on and on about all the negative things that happened, but you can simply share, I took a personal sabbatical. Here's what I've been doing in the meantime. And during this time, I've been getting really clear and intentional about what is it that I truly want in this next org. And this is why I'm really excited to be interviewing today for whatever company, and then talk about all the things that they are advertising. Like, I love that you guys are an organization that promotes work-life culture balance, and you guys have equity in the workplace, right? So you can spin anything into a positive. And that's ultimately what they care about. They want to know your motive and your rationale. Even if you got fired, like, a lot of people think that, oh my gosh, I'm fired. I'm worried that they're going to contact my old references. I don't know if I'm like marketable anymore because something bad happened. Keeping it short and sweet, like, after spending 18 months at this organization, I'm really proud of doing XYZ. Towards the end, we saw a difference in, and again, whatever that might be, like whether it's the management, the leadership, etc. And then again, really quickly pivoting into what I'm really looking for is X. And the more you can share what you're looking for, why this organization excites you, you're changing it to something positive, but also you're giving the employer a chance to hear, oh, wow, like this is what they're looking for. We actually do offer that. They'd be a great cultural fit. And if they don't offer it, like they're like, oh, this person wants work-life balance, we don't have that, you're dodging yourself from a bullet.
Yeah.
And again, exactly. I think it goes back to like the scarcity versus abundance mindset, though, is you must go into your interviews and your job search with the belief that there's so many opportunities for you. It's not about just taking the first offer. It's really thinking about what is the best and most aligned offer for me, because I don't want to join an organization and have to go about this job search again in like 2 or 3 months. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's worthwhile taking some time, a step back, getting clear, allowing yourself to really, I know, Rachel, you probably talk a lot about mindset in your programs and like really clearing out those beliefs and the past that's no longer serving you. But doing that work up front, I think a lot of job seekers freak out because they're like, oh my God, I haven't sent an application all week, but it's like, the application is not what's going to get you the job. What's going to get you the job is that inner work and getting that clarity so that you can go 10 times faster.
That's what I tell people all the time, is that the real work is becoming a match to the right thing. And then once you have done that work and you are sort of at the level of the right thing, it can flow in so much easier and quicker, and there will be ease. I can't tell you, I know you've seen this happen a million times where like someone, they get an interview for a job, maybe out of the blue, like they weren't expecting it. And like every phase of the process was just easy. Like the interview was like easy and flowing, and the connection was good. And, there was like, they asked for more than they thought that they could bargain for. And they just were like, sure, great, we'll give you that money. Like, it's just the ease of how things can unfold when you are a match to the right thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to believe for people who are still at that place where they're like railing against everything that they hate about their job and they're like miserable. Like, that's okay. That just shows you we have some work to do to get you to the point where you're a match to the right thing.
Absolutely. I feel like your dream job really is an inner job. Like, you can't attract your dream job until you're able to let go of things so that you're not operating from force or like, I have to, or I should do this, but instead just letting things flow to you is honestly like the best. Like, I want people's job searches to be enjoyable. Like, it shouldn't be this arduous process where it like takes up all this energy just to like put together a resume, right? And I think that's what, Rachel, you're really highlighting, is that when you can do all of this inner work, then things just start to snowball for you. And it's so true. Like, the most synchronicitous things happen where it's like, oh my God, like 5 months ago, I applied to this job and I never heard back. I just assumed they weren't interested. And all of a sudden now they're interested in interviewing, and it's perfect.
Yeah, happens all the time. And I've seen it happen with, not just jobs, like relationships, also moving, like selling the house, like all of those things happen once you're sort of, when you're feeling aligned and you're feeling clear, things that are a match that can come in. And it's why I tell people at the very beginning, like, listen, your job is not a white knight. Like, it's not, finding the right job is not going to be the thing that saves you from yourself or saves you from your unhappiness. And that, honestly, even if you got the perfect job for you tomorrow, you might not even recognize it as the perfect job yet, or be able to hold on to it, because you might have too many blocks or too much crap that's holding you back right now. And you need to work through that before you can get that thing and then really hold on to it and then enjoy it. Because what if you got it and you brought all your people pleasing crap to it and you're not actually enjoying it? So much of the work leading up to getting that job is that stuff. So, which is why I don't know. I just love the compliment between like what I like to, what Kristen and I love to focus on and what you're over here focusing on, because it just feels like the natural, like, whole arc of the journey from full beginning to end. Oh my gosh, I could talk on and on and on, but if people want to hear you talk more, this is not the only place that they can find you and connect with you and hear what you have to say. So I would love for you to share with them where they can find you and what they might want to sign up for or come get from you. Because I know you've got some resources.
Absolutely. I'm going to say, if you are currently a professional who is looking to transition careers, like you really want to, you don't want to stay in your current org, like, you're currently unfulfilled and you want to look for something external, then I would highly recommend checking out my free webinar. It's called The 7 Steps to Make a Wildly Successful Career Transition. It actually dives into this in a lot more detail, step by step. And that is over at cultivateyourcareer.com/training. And otherwise,
I will link to it in the show notes so that they don't have to.
Anybody's going to get that.
No, they'll link to it. Like, go to the show notes, or just, if you're listening to this in like real time, go to clarityonfire.com, hit the podcast page. Emily's episode will be there.
Awesome.
It won't be that hard to find.
I was like, at least it's spellable, because my real company name is Cultivate, which stands for Cultivate Your Life. And you can actually search that handle on Instagram, or for more daily inspiration and tips on job searching and career, I'm also on LinkedIn just under the name Emily Liou.
Okay. Well, I will attempt to link to all of that. Your Instagram, your LinkedIn, definitely the webinar. And your, just your normal website, so that people can connect with you and learn from you, because I knew that I would learn a lot just in this conversation, because it'd been 3.5 years and I was like, I know that there's like, a whole new like book you could have written about the new way to do things between now and the last time we talked. And there sure was. So, and I know I have some clients right now who are going to be like crying that they're so happy that you came on the podcast now.
Well, it's such a pleasure. And I just want to echo what you said about like the whole complete arc. Like I feel that way every single time I talk to you guys. I'm just so impressed with you and Kristen and what you guys have been building, but also sharing, because I feel like there's not enough emphasis on this in the career coaching space. So many people just want to know like how to cobble together a resume. And I'm just like, no. Take a step back, because the clarity is the most important piece. And then also the confidence is key, because if you don't have that building up, it's impossible to take those steps that you need in order to get the results that you want.
It took such a long time for both me and Kristen to learn the lesson of, in order to get something that fulfills you, you have to be first capable of fulfillment. And waiting for something externally to come in and be the solution to your fulfillment problems is not a great strategy, because you're going to be left wanting every time that happens. And so I'm like, listen, let's use your career misery or whatever as the catalyst to do that inner work and to help you become someone who's capable of fulfillment, so that you can get the job that you want and the relationship that you want and everything, right? It's not just your career that can improve. It's like your whole life can be different. And who wouldn't want that? So
I love that. I could talk to you all day.
Yes. And we will. Okay. So maybe it won't be 3.5 years before we bring Emily back, but enjoy her. I hope you guys enjoyed her while she was here. Go check out her webinar. And Emily, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Okay. I want to plant a seed that this episode is not necessarily just for people who are actively looking for jobs, that you can use a lot of what Emily just said if maybe you're in a job and you're mostly happy with it, but you think it could be better.
You want to turn your good job into a dream job.
Yeah. Or maybe you want to make a transition within your company from one job to another. You're not necessarily looking to quit. Use some of the strategies that she shared here to pitch and spin yourself into something that is exactly what you want.
And if you know that maybe you're happy now, but you might want to make a change in a year, or you have an idea for a transition you want to make later, save this episode, come back, refresh yourself. And I guarantee you know someone who is currently looking for a job or trying to make some sort of a career transition. Send this on to them. They will be very grateful, because this is stuff that I don't feel like people are talking about enough, and it's not widely accessible. So share this, share the love, share the bounty with someone who might be needing this right now, if it's not you.
Mm-hmm. I'm also laughing at the implications for this episode on dating apps. I'm like, I think there are some parallels here.
We always say dating and job searching are the same. So
yeah,
some of the strategies
no, I don't think we
overlap.
should be like pitching ourselves to people as like the solution to their problem. But I actually think that's kind of hilarious. Like to message someone and be like, I see that you have a problem and I believe I'm the right fit for that. But I do think that some of what she said about like, how do you want people to feel when they experience you and when they come into contact with like your page, like on LinkedIn, is probably a really good piece of wisdom for a dating app too. So anyway, I think that this advice has more implications than just the obvious. So anyway, I hope that you guys will take advantage of Emily's free training. We just really love her and we trust her. And I wouldn't send you guys to someone unless I really believed that they were the real deal. And I think she is.
And that they were really going to help you with the next phase. Again, I think of this as a kind of, where are you at on the spectrum? If you're still on the, I don't know what to do with my life spectrum. Well, then, hi, we're here. Talk to us.
You're in the right place with me and Kristen.
If maybe you've worked with us, or maybe you've been on your own career and identity journey, and now you're trying to figure out, how do I actually do the thing? I want to get the job now.
But no one will pay attention to me.
Emily's your girl.
Yeah.
Emily's your girl. So,
or I don't know how to write a LinkedIn page that actually really represents who I am and what I can offer.
The nitty gritty strategy of getting that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we want to introduce you. So check her out. Again, pass along this episode or her workshop to anyone who you might think would get value out of it. And we will be back next Friday with a Dear Rachel.
Okay. See you then.
Bye-bye.